Well, what's up, everybody? It's me, DJ Bretley here, and today I'm doing something a little bit different on my channel. Recently, I've gotten some requests to talk about other things outside of my gig logs, from booking at clubs to gig retention to my setups and why I use them. So today, I figured I would cover something I've been doing since the late 80s, early 90s, and that's club gigs. From booking to the format of a venue to retaining your gig to promotions. I'm going to cover all of that in this short little video here today. So a little backstory is I've been a club DJ longer than I've been a wedding DJ, and I started in Chicago in the late 80s at an all-ages dance club called Medusa's, and it was never, ever my goal to be a DJ. In fact, me becoming a DJ or DJing there was by sheer accident and being at the right place at the right time. And I say that because a good friend of mine, Leroy Fields, used to run the video room at Medusa's. And I used to work right down the street from Medusa's at the Record Exchange in Chicago, when people still bought vinyl records, CDs, cassettes, 8-tracks, and even VHS and DVD. We did both new and used there. But Leroy would come to the record store every day, hang out with us, talk, jam to music, the whole 9 yards. And I would also hang out at Medusa's at the time because I was 16 going on 17. And it was the only real all-ages place that people that were into punk, industrial, alternative could go back in that era. So one night, Leroy and I are in the booth, and he gets a message, or not a message. Somebody comes up and tells him he has an emergency, and he has to leave that night. And he looks at me, he's like, guess what? You're running videos tonight. And I was like a deer in headlights at that point. I'd been hanging out at Medusa's for a long time, but never really ran the booth. I knew how to use all the equipment, and I've queued up my own videos when we weren't open. But now I've been given the biggest all-ages video room in the city to be the DJ for. And it wasn't a train wreck. It was actually pretty good. So, so much so that it couldn't have been more than a week or two later that Leroy had given me the all-ages early part of the night from 7 to 10, and that was for anybody under 18. And maybe a month or two later, things had been going really well. And Leroy finally I know he had changes in his life that he wanted to tend to, and gave me late night as well. So by the time I was like 19 or 18, I was the main video jockey at Medusa's in Chicago. Ego boost, the whole 9 yards. So me going out in that era and chasing after gigs wasn't a thing. I was given my first true DJ gig, and it was a win-win situation. I got to learn about mixing and all of that from a great mentor in Leroy, along with the music of the era. However, all good things come to an end, and so it was, 1993, 94, when Medusa's at Congress closed. Because Medusa's got basically moved from their original location to the Congress Theater on the northwest side of Chicago, basically. And it was an enormous video room. The entire theater of the Congress was mine. And what kid at 18, 19 wouldn't love that? But like I was saying, all good things come to an end. And so it couldn't have been later than the summer of 93, August of 93. I wasn't even 21 yet. And I got an offer to work downtown Chicago at a club called Poets. Wilbur had gotten the offer. Wilbur is the person I worked with at the Record Exchange, but he was already the main DJ at Club 950, probably the oldest and most well-renowned alternative industrial dance club in the city of Chicago at that point. So he had no interest in going down to the party bars of downtown Chicago. However, me at 20 going on 21, I was all about it. And yeah, I was down there until 1996, right before my father passed, and was between there and Club 950, actually, off and on at 950 from 91 till 93. So my club experience was all kind of handed to me at first. So when I went out to start booking things after I left downtown Chicago, it was now pounding the pavement, calling, dropping off, trying to find out who was booking these rooms that I wanted to be at, reading the Chicago Reader, which is where they post gig opportunities for DJs as well. And so that led me all the way up until I kind of gave up DJing in 98 or 99. And I wouldn't say gave up. I just didn't want to be a full-time DJ anymore. I had a real job going into the late 90s. So my life had changed. But when I moved to La Crosse, Wisconsin, I had been running music venues and was given the opportunity to run and manage Legends, or at the time, Sawtooth Sam's and Coconut Joe's in La Crosse. And those are the two biggest bars/clubs in this town. They combined hold about 850 people and occupy the corner of 3rd and Pearl here in La Crosse. Now, I wasn't the DJ at the time, and I really hadn't been DJing outside of my previous club or music venue, making playlists for in-between bands and maybe hopping in the booth after bands to keep people in the venue. But when I got to Legends, I was the GM. And then one day a DJ called in, he's not showing up for work, and the owners look at me and go, "Guess what? You're getting in the booth tonight, kid." And it wasn't a train wreck either. I didn't know all of the current music, the charts, and what made people tick. So I asked the owner's son to do me a favor and make me a crate of the top 500 songs in the bar that had been played on that computer. And when he did so, and I kind of knew how to use the equipment not very well because they weren't turntables, and it wasn't doing like a playlist autoplay thing, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but it went okay. And it wasn't a complete and total train wreck. In fact, it was so decent, or it was that good, that the owners and I started talking about me DJing regularly. But it was very conflictory to me being the club's GM and the other bar, sister venues, GM, because I'd have to be there at 9 or 10 in the morning to open the restaurant, and I wasn't getting home until 3 or 4 in the morning after the club closed. So it really wasn't a win-win scenario, but nevertheless, by January of 2017, I was the main resident DJ at Legends in La Crosse, 3 nights a week plus their GM. Now, luckily, I did have somebody to help me with the GM duties, but it still wasn't a win-win situation. So by June of that year, I was asking to either not be the GM or just be let go. And so by August of that year, we parted ways. And now this is where I'm going to start getting into the gig nuts and bolts of this, so to speak, about booking. Now, after I left Legends, I didn't have any gigs in my back pocket, didn't have much money in my savings account, and really didn't have any great job prospects on the horizon. So I went ahead and started contacting every bar or club within 50 miles of La Crosse. And in addition to that, I'd spoken to somebody, Steve, at a company called Music Mix of La Crosse. Now, we'd met before, and I'd met some of his DJs before, but I'd never seriously considered being a wedding DJ until I talked to Steve at Music Mix of La Crosse. But that's a whole nother story. So within a week or so of me leaving Legends here in La Crosse, I had booked myself or found myself working for a wedding company, but had confirmed some gigs that weren't necessarily as big as Legends, but it was a start on my own booking my own stuff and being completely independent again and only doing my own thing. And at the same time, I had a job offer on the horizon, maybe 2 weeks into it all, that I really went and talked to my daughter about. And I asked her if she wanted me to be home more and DJ or go back to running clubs. And even at 5 years old, my now 13-year-old daughter said, "Dad, I would rather have you be at home more." And I laid it out to her that we could be flat broke, legitimately flat broke. At one point, I was selling some of my instruments to make sure I could pay rent and feed ourselves, just to keep forth with the DJ thing. And I'm honestly glad I did. Best choice I've ever made. And there were some real tough times. So one thing as you're getting into this independently, be really ready to take on some very difficult times, financially, mentally, the whole 9 yards. And that leads me back into booking. So when I left, I contacted every venue in 50 miles of here and wound up outside of the wedding thing, booking within a few weeks a fairly credible DJ schedule that once I got on my feet with it was because missing 2 weeks or 4 weeks of salary kind of put me in the hole. Like I said, I was selling instruments. But by October of 2017, I was on my feet comfortably or solidly, had gigs booked up for every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and some Sundays with weddings included. But I had hit every venue up I could possibly think of and wound up across the street from Legends at one bar called Carly's, Big Al's and Carly's, which is now just Big Al's. They don't have the bar anymore, so to speak. And that became kind of my home. I was there every Friday night from 2017 pretty much until 2018 when they sold. And then I bolstered that with other gigs in other cities. Because being in a small market, I couldn't just rely on La Crosse, Wisconsin to book me. So I went down to Prairie du Chien, which is about an hour south of La Crosse, and found a club called City Sounds, which I still DJ at to this day. Same with DJing at La Crosse Beer House and Legends. It's been 8 years since I've been DJing there. And over that course in time, the one thing I continually did was look for new venues and new bookings that could help me find what I wanted to do personally as a DJ. And over the course of the next year, that wound me up in Rochester, Minnesota, at a club called Legends. And when I was there at the Club Legends in Rochester, the manager of another club basically cherry-picked me. And I won't lie, hold any punches about it. And I went from, one of the smaller clubs in Rochester to being at the biggest club in Rochester, which was a 500, head capacity venue called Dooley's. And Dooley's was a godsend. It came at the right place at the right time for so many reasons. I'd been DJing, in addition to Carly's and City Sounds and Prairie du Chien, a lot of small town bars. And I did that to learn, not just to get the money from gigs, but a small town bar gig is very different from a club gig. And all the gigs I was taking in at one point or another helped me work on my wedding sets. And I'll explain all that later on down the road in this video. So I was DJing at one of my favorite small town bars ever, Whiskey River in West Salem, Wisconsin. That place was going hard, and I really didn't want to part with the gig. And they didn't force me to part with the gig. But as my career path as a DJ changed so I could do what felt most comfortable to me, I wound up at Dooley's 2 or 3 nights a week as their main DJ. And that led us all the way up until COVID. So between Dooley's and my weddings, I really wasn't gigging out more anywhere else. But throughout the entire time, I am still constantly emailing venues that look like they fit what I do and I fit what they would want. So when you're looking to book at venues, the one thing I'm going to suggest is know what your capabilities as a DJ are. Then look at the venues you are thinking about emailing and asking. Do you fit their format? Can you fit their format, and do they fit what you do? Can you complement what they are they do? Because the one thing that you all have to remember when you're booking a club gig, a bar and a club are in it for one thing and one thing only: profitability and to make a dollar. Don't think that you cannot be replaced by any one of these clubs at any time for somebody who does what they want just a little bit better or for a different price point. That's something you always have to remember. So, do you fit that format when you're booking it? If you don't email them. Email the bars and clubs that fit what you do. And here is why. When you get in there, it has to be a win-win relationship with the venue and you. So if you can't do what they want, they're not going to keep you around. And there's a lot of DJs in my market that are kind of one and done, 2 or 3 and done, and don't get rebooked because they're not doing good by the venue. And that's the biggest thing we have to remember. In addition to booking comes retention of that gig. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but retention of the gig means you're responsible as the DJ for laying the vibes out, for laying what the venue wants, for creating that atmosphere that is conducive to having a good time, partying, drinking. So you're going to be playing to the crowd. It's not playing to keep you happy. You're not at a fest. They're not all there to see you. They are there to party and have a good time. and you are there to complement and add to it as the DJ in a musical fashion. Sometimes that does require us getting on the mic and, put your hands up, let me see your hands, scream, shout, whatever it is. But we are there to add to the vibe. The next thing is making sure their staff is happy. So in a club gig, a bar gig, even if you're there every night, stop in when you start, once you get there, say hi to your bar staff, check in, be human. They're human. Ask how they're doing. They're going to ask the same of you. And be ready to make sure you as a DJ are working hand in hand with them to drive their customers, their guests, from the dance floor back to the bar to drink. Because if you're keeping everybody on the dance floor all night long, you are not helping that venue out because they're not drinking. So one tip I learned years ago is at least, if you're DJing for 4 or 5 hours, on the hour, every hour, if not more, play a dud of a song to drive people to the bar. And I don't mean a dud as in to drive them out, but don't play a dance banger. Play something that is going to make them want to stay, bop their head, but like, oh, hey, my drink is empty. I've been dancing for 30 minutes. Time to go drink. If you are continually doing that, that is one way to make sure you're going to retain your gig. Bars are in the business to sell drinks. Now, some clubs will have shot girls. One thing I will do at any club that has a shot girl is I get on the mic and let them know, hey, the shot girls are out right now. You need a shot? Go get one. And I will continually try to keep the vibes going while driving business back to the bar. Between vibes and profitability, that's how you keep your job as a DJ. And now, currently, all of the gigs I have been at since 2020 or longer. I really don't, I take that back, except for Nashville North, which was an addition 2 years ago. So all the gigs I'm at, I have had starting anywhere from 8 years ago to the least amount of time is 2 years ago. I retain my gigs because I do right by the venue, by following their format, making sure people drink, and curating the vibes that fit that venue. And for example, now you might ask why I'm not at Dooley's in Rochester anymore. 2020 changed everything. It really did. 2020, when COVID came around, I remember my last night at Dooley's. It was the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day. And me and the venue manager got hammered in the booth. It was the first drink I'd had in 2 years. And we got wasted, but we knew we weren't going to be there again for St. Patrick's Day. And that was the kind of relationship I was on with that club's manager, that we could sit and drink and have a great time while I was working, or meet up and go out for drinks afterwards. So you need to build that rapport with every venue you're at. But as I was saying, when 2020 came around and COVID shut everyone down, Dooley's reopened a couple of times before the city shut them down for not following the health ordinances for 72 hours twice. And after 7 months, the owner sold. He just couldn't reopen credibly and be able to cover all of his expenses. It wasn't feasible. So he got out. And when that came around, I went to a club and venue in La Crosse called Animal House. And I was there from 2020 to 2023 when I went back to Legends and Beer House full time. But all of my gigs, all of my resident club and pub gigs, I maintain because I do right by the venue, do right by their guests, and do what they want. So that's how you retain your gigs. Now, when I go back to booking a gig is going to be the most, and this, when I was saying earlier about being mentally taxed, booking gigs is one of the most difficult things you're going to come across. As a musician, as a DJ, whatever you want to call it, we are not needed. Remember that. As a DJ or entertainer, we are not needed to run the business. Now, when you're messaging, get used to rejection. A former friend of mine and DJ really asked how many emails I'm sending or messages I'm sending out and the return I'm getting. And when I broke it down to him, if I send out 100 booking emails or messages, I am lucky to get 7 to 10 replies. Of those 7 to 10 replies, I might get 1 or 2 bookings. So it is mentally taxing, and you're getting doors closed in your face or no one even cares to reply. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to know that you are not God's gift to the world, and there are 100,000 other of you out there you're competing with for gigs. And at the same time, you're not competing as necessarily, but camaraderie and working together as DJs will only bolster the community. So if another DJ gets a gig you wanted, you can't be mad. They were just better qualified for it in the venue's eyes. So like I was breaking it down, of those 100 emails, when you break down to 1 or 2 bookings, you need to put your best foot forward for those 1 or 2 and make sure they want to bring you back. Not just one time, but regularly. Add you to their roster. Add you to their rotation. And all of my gigs right now, I have been regularly at for a minimum of 2 years, like I was saying. And to break it down, Legends and Beer House, I've been at off and on for 9 years. Mostly on, except when I left there to go on my own. City Sounds, 7 years. Icon and Stevens Point, Stadium View in Green Bay, 5 years. So that tells you, shows you that I definitely know what I'm talking about and know how to work my crowds and venues. So those are the 3 biggest factors thus far that go into it. Now, the final, kind of straw I like to throw in this is promotion. And I can't, emphasize this enough, that promotion is one of the biggest things you're going to be doing. Once you've got the gig, yay, bravo, congratulations. Now promote it. Because even if you don't get a great turnout, if the venue sees you are investing your time and energy into the gig, into promoting it, into prepping your music and all of that, and doing exactly what they want, driving people to the bar, setting the right vibe, and keeping their guests happy, even if you're not the greatest DJ in the world, they're probably going to bring you back. So, promoting. And when I don't mean just throwing a post up on Facebook. If you haven't, obviously that's one of the things you have to do. But Facebook, Insta, TikTok, YouTube, Threads, Lemon, all of these apps everybody uses. You, in promotions, have to find out which apps your target demographic is really using the most. And once you figure that out, posting to those regularly. Not, just your gig. Oh, every day the same thing. Mix up your promotion. But make sure you're promoting those gigs you book to the best of your ability on all your platforms. And then I'll even go so far to say, post them into Facebook groups. I post all of my gigs into the local Facebook groups of where the gig is going to be. When venues see that, they know you care about what you're doing and want the best result possible for the gig you're booking. So those are my four bubble points that I'm making. Booking, promotion, retention, and my backstory of how I got started. I hope this helps some of you all out. And if you didn't ever have questions, please feel free to drop me a message, djbretley@outlook.com. Look in the comment section below for all my socials. Feel free to tune in and, shoot me a message. I'm more than happy to help anyone out. Anyway, that's the end of this first video about booking and being a club DJ. I'm going to have more coming up. Somebody actually asked me about my weddings and promoting that, and that'll be a different video I'll be coming out with real soon. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope you got something out of it. Peace.